Ага, селфи в рядок, хорошо.
Ну чего?
Селфи в рядок он хочет.
Селфи в рядок. Так, почти. Так, Рому не видно. Рома?
Рома.
Селфи, да?
Да, в рядок.
Always.
Так, а вас надо же выключить звук, наверное.
Я положил не потому, что мне неинтересно.
Hello and very welcome here. My name is Börge Nilsson. I'm a Swedish freelancer. I've been covering Russia for some years, writing a book on Anna Politkovskaya, and I'm a coordinator of a project called Scoop Russia, supporting investigative journalism in northwest Russia. And we will have a panel here on what's happening in Russia, and perhaps some idea of what will happen in the future. So I'm very glad to have this very experienced panel to help me. A big welcome to you. Our guests are Anin, head of investigative section at the Novaya Gazeta, the famous independent newspaper in Moscow, and it is Galina Timchenko, former editor of the news service Lenta.ru in Moscow. Now she is the executive editor at the Russian news portal Medusa, with its audience in Russia, but located in Riga, Latvia. And it's Andrey Sakharov, investigative journalist and editor of Agentura.ru, Moscow, specialized in covering intelligence services, and also authored 2 books on Russia and intelligence services. And it's Mikhail Sigar, editor-in-chief at the independent Dost TV in Moscow, and authored 2 books on Russia, written up on sources in Kremlin, among others. And I would like to, I think we make talk and then we take questions afterwards. But first I would like to have some help to answer some very basic short questions on Russia from all of you. And the first one would be, is Russia a democracy, Roman?
No.
Why?
But I mean, it's not even a problem of being democracy, because I'm not. I don't care actually democracy or whatever. What I do care is about being fair, let us say, and the problem is that we are living not in a fair state, as I believe. Why it's not democracy? I mean, I don't cover politics, so I don't care about actually politics, and
okay.
Being a reporter, I don't care actually who is the president, to be honest. But I do cover law enforcement, and let us say, is it fair or not? I'll give you, just personal examples, and that will be the answer on your question. So we have different law enforcement agencies, and one of them is, let us say, investigative committee. And the head of the investigative committee, whose name is Alexander Bostrykin, a couple of years ago kidnapped my actually boss, the head of the investigative section, now the deputy chief editor, brought him into the forest and said that, I'll cut your head and your legs, and nobody will find it because it will be investigated by my subordinates, by my investigators. And the guy was, of course, drunk, this is his actually, he's always drunk, to be honest. But the thing is that he is still the head of the investigative committee. Nothing happened afterwards.
Nothing happened. Okay.
So no, it's not a democracy.
No. Galina?
No, for sure.
For sure.
A very short answer. Are there any working democratic institution in Russia? Do we have independent court? Do we have transparent elections? Do we have working civil society? No.
Andrey?
No, I think, well, the same answer actually, because I think the essential part of democracy is independent media and oversight of our security services, and we have none.
Okay. I failed with my first question. Everybody.
I must say yes, just because I'm the last one, and I must say yes. Russia is a democracy, is a potential democracy, I would say, because unfortunately we have never experienced a government that resigned as a result of election. I think it's usually everywhere in the world it's needed for democracy. We have not experienced that fact in our history, and we have never experienced, let's say, authorities that hand in the power to the opposition as a result of election. But we do have a civil society. A little, tiny. Sometimes it seems that it's a sleeping one, but still it exists, and I think it deserves that kind of Russia that is going to become democracy very soon.
To become democracy very soon. Okay, thank you for that. Next question is perhaps not a success either. The news shows that the big federal television channels are airing those that can be seen for free in all Russia. Is that journalism, Roman?
No, it's not a journalism, and the thing is that they don't produce information and they don't produce the truth. So, and it can't be journalism.
Galina?
It's a show.
It's a show.
Yep.
Andrey? Well, many years ago, Mikhail Leontiev, one of the most prominent, say, I don't know, TV presenters very close to the Kremlin. Now he's actually, for some strange reasons, his deputy CEO of Rosneft, the biggest Russian oil company, said that TV is a weapon. It cannot be, it's not, it has nothing to do with media. That's why weapons should be kept under control of the government. I think it was a very honest description of the situation we have.
Okay. So a propaganda weapon, you mean? Yeah. And Mikhail?
You know, that's a very simple question, because a lot of people are working for state-owned or state-affiliated media in Russia, and let's say about TV channels, thousands of people. And I cannot say that all of them are not journalists. A lot of people covering cultural affairs or city events, they are doing their little tiny, not political, not dangerous job. They are not being used as a weapon. So I cannot say categorically that all of them are criminals. But that's a personal tragedy for me, and I think for many people who work as journalists in Russia, that I'll say about myself. I'm afraid I lost a couple of my friends because I cannot shake hands with some people because I think that they committed crime, and I hope that one day I'll talk to them again and shake hands, but after the court.
The crime
after
is
the court decision.
The crime is to deliberately lie in television or something like that? Or?
No, I think that many Russian volunteers who were killed, let's say in Donbass, or killed people in Donbass, they did it not because their families told them to go there, but because they were told by TV. And that's why I'm not the person to blame anybody. I think the court should do it. And I would like to see that process and just to know whether the journalists are to blame or not. But I think that's a serious question that should be raised one day.
Yeah. Okay. You are representing different media that are not state-controlled in any way, but I guess everybody has some stories that couldn't be told. What kind of stories can't be told in Novaya Gazeta?
I don't know any story which can't be told in Novaya Gazeta. If it's an important story and it's in a public interest, then it will be told.
Okay.
The same.
The same. Andrey?
Well, the thing is that our website is small, and what we do, we mostly write for Western publications now to get stories published. And what we found out is when you have something really sensitive, it's better first to find Western publications to get published, and then this story might be picked up by Russian media. That is my personal experience.
So you take the way around the border to get to the... Okay. Mikhail?
I think there are no exact taboos, but I think the problem is different. The problem is that there are traditional ways of coverage for state media and for independent media, and it's unwritten rule. But unfortunately, there is some for state media. It could be written rule that first probably is the news about President Putin, then second is about President Putin, then about Ukraine, and then probably Medvedev.
And the weather report.
I'm afraid that some kind of such a tradition in terms of choosing topics exists within independent media, and that's why sometimes they are too predictable.
And that goes for Dost too, or
yeah.
Okay.
I think that could be a confession.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. Raman, you are covering a lot of corruption in your newspaper and revealing different stories in Russia. 6 of the people working for Novaya Gazeta has been killed. How did you avoid getting killed?
What's the question?
How do you work to avoid getting killed?
Well, the rule is that if they want to kill you, they will kill you. But there is a certain amount of rules which, if you follow them, you make it difficult. So my idea is to build as many layers as possible and make me kill as difficult as possible. And being difficult means more time. And if it's more time, then it means that one day they will just decide that, okay, we should not spend so much time on one person. But again, the rule is that if they want to kill you, they will kill you. So there is no any way to get rid of it, actually.
Yeah. But you told me once that it is important to treat everybody fair. Is that a way?
Exactly. So that's one of the main rules. But I mean, it's not even about being killed or not. It's about, in general, security. So we deal with criminals, we deal with politicians, we deal with many kind of people. And my rule is that I'm not better and I'm not worse than these people. So I treat them with respect. And, I'm not for justice. I'm not a justice minister and I'm not even a god,
Unfortunately.
But unfortunately, yeah, I would like to have this power for one day. So I do respect these people and they respect it as well. We had so many examples when we wrote something, bad about these people, but everything was true. And these people, I know that they killed many people before. But they treated me with respect because they thought that, I'm not trying to sublime that I am somehow better. No, I'm not better.
So you are getting interviews with the people that killed a lot of persons, and
yeah.
How do you get these kind of interviews?
The same, with just with respect, so nothing personal. This is, I mean, I sublime that, you know, this is only my job, and if I do it fair enough, then they're okay with that. And that's the main rule.
But there is a lot of sources inside authorities that could have an interest in being a whistleblower or talking to journalists, perhaps. But those guys, do they have that kind of interest?
They are the best sources. The problem is that, you know, the best sources are usually bad guys. And good guys are not sources because they're too dependent on their job. They live only on their salary, and the risks for them are much higher. If they lose their job, then that's all. Corrupt and bad guys, they don't care. Or, I mean, they have their own interest. And I don't care about their interests. So that is why bad guys are better sources.
So you call them or email them or...
Well, I mean, it depends. I can write emails, I can call them, or usually, you know, it's you get in touch with them through friends.
Yeah, okay. The first scoop you had in Novaya Gazeta, you told me, was it 5 years ago or something, and you was interviewed by most of the media in Russia, and the news was spread to
yeah, it was in 2009, and that was probably, you know, kind of end of journalism on TV, I would say. So this was a story about the head of paratroop forces, Mr. Semenov, and his brother-in-law, I think brother-in-law, he was a criminal, and he was investigated by an investigative committee, and Mr. Semenov used his paratroop forces to protect his relative, and actually gave a command to arrest the investigator and keep him and whatever. And we published those tapes in our newspaper. I got them officially, you know, from the criminal case. Mm-hmm. And it was like a big scandal, you know. TV channels came to our newspaper, they interviewed me in the newspaper, and it was everywhere. And actually, I mean, it shows the power of media, because that story, which is, I mean, today is impossible, but by that time, they still had to punish Semenov somehow. And they did it. I mean, they didn't fire him, but, you know, they said that, okay, that's not good, at least. Yeah. So but since then, yeah.
It today, was probably, it's not like that.
Today, no.
No. What happened when you undress some criminals or corrupt politicians today?
You mean the official reaction?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing, okay. You had an investigation this summer, and it's actually published in the Swedish Investigative Journalism magazine Scoop, but in Swedish. It's over here. Please, that's your copy.
Thank you.
And this is about officials in the security service FSB in Russia that became millionaires in dollar by some kind of children.
Yeah, there was a kindergarten, and then they actually destroyed the kindergarten, and the kindergarten was in the most in the best place in Russia, where the land is the most expensive, and they destroyed the kindergarten, privatized the land for nothing. I mean, they paid nothing, and then sold it for hundreds of millions. Sold it for the market price and got millions of dollars. Yes, that was the investigation, and actually, as if we're talking about the official reaction of the authorities, even before we published the investigation, FSB, which we covered, they came up with an initiative to close the land register in Russia, because the investigation was mainly based on the land register. And they will do that because the government approved the initiative. And I mean, multiple sources we deal with, including from FSB, they said that this is because of this story. About
so you expose wrongdoing, and the result is a new law making it impossible.
Exactly.
Exposing wrongdoing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And there is really a lot of new laws I heard some number, I don't know if it's correct, but 100 laws regulating media the last 3 years, making it more difficult to be a journalist in Russia. What law is the worst one, according to you?
I'm not a media manager, so I would better address, the question to media managers.
But you have mentioned the law that makes it possible to take my name or my stories away from the internet.
Yeah, but that's I don't. What's the name of the law? So it's the right to forget.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, which means that any person who doesn't like, or even doesn't matter. Just any person from Russia, if he wants to delete the information about himself from the web, and it doesn't matter whether it's right or false, actually.
Yeah.
He just goes and, I don't know, sends a request to whatever, and the information is deleted.
To some authority in Russia?
After 3 years.
Yeah, after 3 years.
Yeah, okay. So that means that your investigations, it's impossible to find on the internet in Russia, or?
Well, on this stage, they're still online, but yeah, I'm quite sure if I'm an official, and somebody wrote a bad story about me and I have such a beautiful law, I would do that.
Yeah, okay. You also had some kind of mobile phone that behaved strange in August. What happened?
Well, actually, but it was simple. My email was hacked. And they used an interesting technique. They cloned my SIM card. So they switched off to my SIM card, cloned the new one, then got the recovery code on the fake SIM card. And actually, the problem is that in order to fake the SIM card, to clone the SIM card, they used fake passport details. So they got the SIM card and hacked my email. Yeah.
So they could read your email, but you couldn't read it.
Yeah, that's a kind of general technique which is used to hack emails. So that is why if you live in hostile environment, delete all your phone numbers from the recovery, in Gmail. That's a shitty procedure. They demand you to have it, but you should not.
Okay, thank you for that advice. Galina, did your mobile phone act strange when you was the editor-in-chief of Lenta.ru?
No, but this year, one of oligarchs who is very close to presidential administration asked me not to call him ever, because he said, I know for sure that you're white.
Okay. It's a good source, yeah?
Yeah.
Lenta.ru was the most quoted and influential news service in Russia.
The most reading and the most quotable.
Yeah. What kind of coverage did you do?
All over the world.
Yeah.
We had 9 big blocks of topics. So we're covering all Russian agenda, all world agenda, weapon, science, culture, whatever. All of this.
Mikhail mentioned these kind of lists or rules from the Kremlin, and it is told that there is some system of telling what the state and the big private could cover and what they could not cover, and perhaps a list of forbidden topics. Was you ever contacted by the Kremlin trying to
yes, I was introduced to the head of press service of Kremlin, but the problem is that nobody believes me. That problem is that they didn't even try to make a deal with me. But a couple of months ago, ex-head of RIA Novosti government agency, Svetlana Vranyuk, gave interview and said that there are maybe 3 groups of media. First group is totally under control. Second is those group who sometimes make a deal. It's some kind of exchange. And third is independent, or they even didn't try to make a deal. So, and I was in the last list, and it seems to me it was the reason why I was fired.
Okay, but they wanted you to the second group.
For sure.
For sure. Do you know how it is made practically?
Yeah, you know, in Medusa, in my new project Medusa, we published an interview and some kind of data from so-called Anonymous International. He published instant messages between Kremlin administration and new editor-in-chief of Lenta.ru, and it's very clear that they tried to replace me with controlled and pro-Kremlin administrator.
But you got fired, yeah?
Yeah, I was
And the
fired
reason was...
in 1 second.
The reason
Just
was this?
before Crimea annexation and referendum in Crimea.
Okay. And when they sacked you, what happened then?
Then 77 of 84, my employees resigned in a protest.
Wow, that's heavy.
Yeah.
But you was displaced with some that was more doing what they told them.
Do you mean
Your
what
successor, yeah. You had another. They had another editor-in-chief that.
Yeah, you know, editor-in-chief hired more loyal editors and journalists.
Yeah. But then you started up Medusa. It's approximately a year ago, or? We started Medusa, you know, after my firing, we've met in an inner circle of editors, and they say we have a teeny tiny chance to make a fresh start and do proper things, so let's start. And we started it in Riga because I realized that there is no place to work free in Russia. So we started in Riga. It's the same time zone. It's Russian-speaking population, and it's very simple to start business in European Union. Yeah. And the Riga is in Latvia and a neighbor country.
Yeah.
But it was impossible to make fair journalism within Russia, inside Russia, I mean.
No, it's possible. And there is there are an example.
Yeah.
But I do not have so much health and energy to fight with FSB as Roman or investigative committee or something like that.
Okay, that was the reason, yeah.
I mean, I do not want to have some obstacles as TV Rain had.
Yeah. But when you are in a neighbor country, how do you, but you have your audience in Russia, how do you get introduce the stories inside Russia?
You know, we had headquarters in Riga, and my special reporters are living in Russia.
Okay, so that's
yeah.
just the main office, okay. I have read in some newspaper that Yuko's former owner, Mikhail Khodorkovsky, is the man financing the project?
After my firing, Mr. Khodorkovsky called me and invited me, and he said that he wanted to be an investor of my new project. And we were holding months of negotiations. And just before start, we realized very clearly that we have very different opinions about what independent of media is.
So he wanted something else on the project.
Yeah, he wants 1% control, and I say, no way, I am not a pocket toy. Okay. So goodbye, no hard feelings.
So even the good guys would like to control the media?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
They want to be an influential player.
Yeah, but if he don't finance Medusa, who do?
You know, it's a very interesting question. Every time when somebody asks me those questions, I said I have no right to name these people because it was the one and only condition of investment. They have business in Russia, they have families in Russia, they do not want to put them on risk. So I put on risk my reputation to cover names of my investors.
And
it
that
was
is
a condition
dangerous.
of our existence, and I took it.
Yeah, because you, Raman, have had the owner Lebedev.
I just wanted to add that this is actually smart and the only way, because our main investor for he's still a shareholder, but he's not investing any money. anymore. Mr. Lebedev, yes, he was financing Novaya Gazeta for many years, and I'm quite sure that because of it, his business was ruined.
Yeah.
I mean, he had like terrible amount of rates in his bank, which was the main asset, and since then the bank is nothing because all the assets are withdrawn. So he had a lot of problems, and I mean, it's not a secret that people from Kremlin, they try to negotiate with him and buy the share or tell him what to do and what not to do. So he had a lot of problems. So
Okay.
it's very smart not to mention your investors.
Okay. But you are well dependent on the internet and that the internet works. But your site have been blocked once.
Medusa was blocked at the second day of our working in Kazakhstan after report of our special correspondent Eliazar about the situation with Russian population in the east of Kazakhstan. We were blocked, and thank you to the government of Kazakhstan, because those days we have 1.5% of our audience, and we can train our IT command to avoid blocking and to make some technical measures to avoid blocking. So thank you.
Today, can you be blocked today?
Yeah. Today we're open in Kazakhstan, and our applications are still working.
And is it possible to block you if the rocks
it's
come
possible, and
it's
it's possible. We can lose some of our audience, but we did some measures to avoid blocking, and we're trying to explain to our audience how to avoid blocking. Published a series of articles.
Yeah. But because internet is your only platform, it's
yes,
everything
for
is
sure.
there.
Internet applications, not. We are cross-platform, and we did some so-called kind or clever bots for messengers, and we have applications and web as well.
But it's built upon internet. Andrey, your father, he took
My father?
he took internet to Russia.
Yeah, that's right, but it was actually 25 years ago, in 1990.
Yeah,
He
okay.
was a young scientist at the Moscow Kurchatov Institute, the top secret research facility, and that was the first institution which was authorized by the Soviet authorities to get connected with the West, actually with Finland.
Okay.
So he founded the very first internet service provider in Russia.
And now, I have heard something about plans for making a kind of switch-off control for internet to take away Russia from the internet again. What is that, and would it work? Or?
Well, the problem is that the national telecommunication infrastructure of Russia provokes them to think that they can achieve that, because it's still extremely centralized. We have very few so-called national operators. They are all under some sort of government control, and the biggest one, Rostelecom, is actually fully under government control. And also the problem is that Russia connected with the outside world only on three directions. So there's one line, not one line, but one direction is to Finland and Sweden. Actually to Stockholm. Another one's tiny line is to Iran, and the third direction is to Japan.
Okay.
That provokes them to think that, well, if you can control national operators and also you can control these things, these lines, that makes them think that we can do that. Also, we have very few so-called internet exchange points. For example, one of them, the first one, M9, still process over half of whole Russian internet traffic, which means that if you can control this internet exchange point, you might do something with that. And because it's actually in the premises of Rostelecom, which is state-owned and state-controlled company, they think they can do that. But
Do you think they will?
I don't think it might be possible, because they might try to suppress some services. Maybe they can have some temporary blackout, but we have huge internet inside of the country, and lots of things are happening inside of the country, and you need to control not only the information coming from abroad, but also information coming inside of the country, which proved to be impossible, and especially with Ukraine. I think it's a great example when the government thought that they can control everything because they controlled companies. You know this story about Russian social network Vkontakte. Just before the Crimea annexation, Vkontakte was put under direct control, and the guy who now is chief of Vkontakte is the son of the chairman of the Russian Television and Radio Broadcasting Corporation. So you have a father to control television and radio, and we have a son to control Vkontakte. But we got Crimea, and immediately Russian soldiers started posting things about themselves in Ukraine, and they exposed everything, and I suspect they knew nothing about who's in charge of Vkontakte as company, and maybe they never heard of Dobrodeyev, Pavel Durov, and these problems with management.
This is your specialty, the surveillance systems and internet, and you came with a book, The Red Web.
That's right.
Very
it was published
recently?
this September. Yeah.
September? Okay.
Yeah. In September in the States.
So read, yeah.
Yeah.
And there you have a lot of sources within the security services, or?
Yeah, I have been covering Russian secret services since 1999. So some of my sources, I got, actually 1999, 2000. And we still have lots of people inside of security services who are not entirely happy with their seniors. Most of them motivated by entirely economic and selfish reasons. Sometimes, but they might be really desperate.
So you have whistleblowers within FSB?
It's not about whistleblowers. Whistleblowers in the West, they are driven by abstract reasons. They think that something goes wrong inside of their security services, like, Mr. Snowden shows, and he wanted to expose things. Russian whistleblowers, they're very selfish. They mostly care about their pensions, apartments, this kind of thing. But they might be really desperate. So, for example, we have few cases in the Strasbourg Human Rights Court. Then FSB officers actually sued their leadership in Strasbourg because we wanted desperately to get their apartments. That means that you might talk to them, and sometimes if you can't find a way not to talk only about their apartments, you can extract some real information.
But you don't buy information from FSB?
No, because I think it's a very wrong way to buy information, because it provokes them to think that they might make up some information, and I don't believe in this kind of relationship. I think, actually, if you care about your source, you just need to spend lots of time with them. And you need to talk to them. You might spend hours, maybe days, and actually it's very tiresome, because you need to hear all this and listen to all these crazy stories about apartments and their children, etc. But that pays off, because they trust you. Sometimes you might ask some questions which might be really important.
So it's the same advice that Roman had a little bit, to respect the sources and work very, normal journalism.
You just should be ready to spend lots of time. It's just cost you.
So Russia is not that different from the rest of the world.
Yeah, of course.
The aim of this conference is to, one aim is to establish cross-border cooperation and cross-border investigations. And I guess a lot of people here would be interested in cooperating with the Russian colleagues. How do we do that in a proper way? Could we try to contact the state television, or would we be a troll at risk for trolling or something like that? Propaganda?
I think the basic thing about journalists is our reputation. Yeah. So the only thing we have our reputation. So if you know people, what they did, you might understand, can you trust them or not? But I think we had some great examples of some cooperation. I personally have my experience with cooperating with British journalists. We did a big investigation about surveillance in Sochi at the time of the Olympic Games, and we cooperated with The Guardian, and the story was published by The Guardian, and they did a great job, and they found lots of things which we needed, and we cooperated, and it's a great thing, because in this case you might avoid accusations of, say, working for some spying organizations because you work with international newspapers and journalists, and if you have high profile, it means that for the security services, it's much more hard to attack you.
Okay, but there is a risk for you as a Russian journalist to cooperate with international colleagues, or do you face?
We have, because we have the new legislation which came in force in December of 2012, which means that the definition of state treason was completely changed. So before 2012, the FSB, if they wanted to accuse you of state treason, they needed two things. They needed to find that you have access to state secrets. This is the first thing. And then they needed to prove that you gave up this information to a spying organization.
To spy organization.
Yeah, now they removed these two obstacles. So now if you just pass on information which has nothing to do with state secrets, but might be considered a risk to national security, this makes you a spy. And they do not need to prove that you are working for spying organizations. They just can say, look, it's an international organization, it's enough.
Okay. And the definition is made afterwards. It could be pointed out as a state secret when you have shared it with other persons. You can't predict what is a state secret, or can you?
No, well, just again, I should repeat it because maybe it's not very clear. It's not about state secrets. Yeah. It's about state treason. So the thing is that before this legislation, they needed to find that you actually had access to state secrets. Now it's not about state secrets. It's about any kind of information which might be considered a threat to national security. Okay. So it might be some statistics.
For example, falsification of
elections.
Election. Yeah. If you have information and transfer it to international observers, you should be punished as a
But how should we handle this if we are cooperating with you and you are at risk for, I don't know what?
Well, the problem says that the rules are not really defined. So you can only guess what might happen. Okay. We're still waiting for, not waiting, but actually...
Desperately waiting.
For the first case, for the first precedents. We got a sort of precedent with the case of a woman who, she made a call last summer to the Ukrainian embassy, and she told some crazy stuff like, well, I just witnessed some people on the streets talking about that their military unit might be relocated to Ukraine. And of course she had nothing to do with, she had no security clearance, she had no access to state secrets. It was just overheard conversation. And she decided that it was her duty to call on Ukrainian embassy. And she was, after 6 months, I think 6 months passed, her house was raided by FSB from Moscow. She was put in jail, and only after a big public outcry, she was released.
Yeah. Or another story about the guy who sent his CV to
a Swedish company.
Yeah.
But at least this guy, in past, he had some sort of security clearance. But with David, it was completely just out of the blue.
The war in Ukraine I guess we have read or understand, all of us, that it has changed reporting in Russia and a lot of propaganda about Ukraine. That's correct, in the state television?
Sure, and also on social networks. Yeah. It's a very effective way to spread propaganda now. It might be even more effective than TV, I don't know.
The new war in Syria, have you seen that in television as well?
We have our specialists.
Yeah, maybe Mikhail might answer this question.
I'm specialist on state propaganda concerning Syria.
Specialist.
I might tell you a little story. There were happy times when our TV channel was rich and mighty, and we had something like 20 million viewers. And we had weather forecast, and two very young and very smart meteorologists working for us. They were professionally educated in meteorology, and after we encountered real problems and were nearly closed down, we had to fire them. that was very tragical situation. And finally, both of them were hired by two very mighty state-owned channels. One of them, Moscow 24, the second one by Russia 24. And just a couple of days ago, that was a scandal when our little pretty girl that used to make weather forecasts on our TV channel, she was making this forecast for Russia 24, and she was describing the weather in Syria, telling that it's okay for our bombers to fly there. The sky is clear
yeah.
all over Syria, and that's okay. Good luck, our boys. That was.
So this is your old stuff, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
She used to work for us.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. You have been, Mikhail, you have been writing books about Gazprom, very close to the power, and on the metamorphosis of Mr. Vladimir Putin, and with a lot of sources within Kremlin. So you should be a quite well-informed guy. This war in Syria, will that last for long?
Oh, I'm a well-informed guy, but I'm not astrologist, so I cannot answer that question. Even more, I would tell you that last year I promised to myself not to make any more forecasts. That was immediately after Crimea, because I publicly said that that's impossible. It won't happen. They won't annex Crimea. That's impossible. So I was wrong, and I promised to myself no more forecasts ever. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I can tell you a story. You didn't ask me about eavesdropping. We have very young journalists working for our TV channel. It's independent one, that's why it's not very rich, and some of them are students. And one of my correspondents recently came to me with very big eyes, shocked, because and told me that he attended a party, just ordinary student party, the day before, and there were some girls attended who used to study at FSB Academy, and after drinking some glasses of lemonade, they told him, they boasted that that's they who have to listen and to tape the phone calls of me and the CEO of our TV channel. So they are listening our telephone conversations, and they were so proud of that.
Okay.
Great story.
I can hear
they, okay, so on the party you got that information. Yeah. But did you have any other? Yeah, that's evidence that you have been under surveillance. But nothing happened to your cell phone, as with Raman.
Nothing happened to my cell phone, because I never tried to
encrypt.
protect any kind of information, because we're working live, and actually our goal is to tell all those secrets that we have. And I usually try not to discuss, let's say, our future reports with our investigative team via telephone.
Yeah. But you have written those books with sources within Kremlin. I guess for the first, it's difficult to get a source in the Kremlin, and the second, that they are quite interested in not being mentioned by this guy typing a phone calls. How do you do when you get that kind of sources, and how do you keep that kind of sources?
That was very long, rather boring, and very difficult work. I had to come and go for a couple of years regularly, and to talk to them. And the problem is that all of them are absolutely sure that they are right, and they do right things. And they, some of them are puzzled and even surprised with the direction of civil society, of liberal civil society, and with the disappointment and disgust of liberal civil society. They do not understand why people are not delighted by their policy. And many of them really want to explain their motivations and their initial goals. Besides, they really live in a different world. They construct their own memories, their own biographies. It has nothing to do with reality. They see the world in that's a magical world. How they see it. So it's hard to first to talk to them. Then it's very hard just to distinguish those little pearls of facts that exist in their long stories, long artificial stories.
Okay, but you didn't present yourself. Hello, I'm Mikhail. I will write a book about Mr. Putin. Could you please give me some inside information?
No, I never concealed the fact that I'm writing a book. Otherwise, they won't talk to me probably as an editor-in-chief of TV channel. But I explained my motivation, and actually I was sincere that I didn't want to write pro-Putin or anti-Putin book. And as I told them, my initial goal was to imagine what if 100 years passed, and I'm trying to explain to those people in future what the hell was happening in Russia 100 years ago, and what all those politicians were thinking about, and why did they do those stupid things. Yeah. And they were okay with that explanation.
Okay. Yeah. DOS television has a very long and very interesting history, or short but interesting history. We are perhaps running out of time, but just some short. It became famous when you covered the popular protests against the elections 2010 and 2011, which the state television didn't. And that gave you problems. You had also another, you was putting a perhaps nationally unpolite question in a poll about blockade of Leningrad that put you out of the cable networks.
That was used as a pretext for that was used as a pretext for an attack against us. Okay. That wasn't the reason.
But it was something that they could point at and say that, look at this wrongdoing. Okay. But you lost millions of viewers overnight. How did you solve that?
Not overnight. That was during 1 month.
Okay.
But that was really very picturesque campaign when suddenly you mentioned that notorious question that was aired on Sunday. And unexpectedly, I found that all Russian pop stars are watching our TV channel on Sunday evening, because suddenly all the famous guys like Oleg Gazmanov or Grigory Leps started tweeting that they were outraged by the show on our TV channel, and I found out that we are really popular, that they're watching us live. Of course, we understood, and we got, afterwards we got proof that that was pre-conducted campaign. From the same interviews of Anonymous International, we know it for sure. So after that, the Association of Cable Operators demanded that all the cable operators should switch us off. And during the next month, some of them obeyed, and we lost something like 90% of our audience.
90?
90%.
90.
Exactly. 90, yeah. We had 20 million and we're left with 2 million or something. But then we managed to regain some parts of our audience thanks to Smart TV. We have contracts with manufacturers of TV sets, so many people can watch us without any cable through internet. The most important thing is that we changed the scheme, because all the advertisers were gone as well after that campaign, and now we draw money from our viewers, and we changed for a subscription scheme, and actually finally we are profitable media because we live on the money that are given to us by our viewers.
Yeah, but this year there was a new law from the 1st of January. It was forbidden to sell advertisement in privately owned cable channels, but not to state-owned. It's quite unusual, but you say that this law is headed just against you. It's a special written law.
That was a common understanding,
Yeah,
you know.
But you also...
Everyone considered that law to be against us, as, for example, a law that bans Russian media from having major foreign shareholders were pointed against Vedomosti and Forbes.
But the law about bloggers against opposition leader Alexei Navalny.
That's
one law for every enemy.
But that's interesting,
that's a very good example that proves my eternal theory that there is no strategy, no plan in the minds of our great strategists, because that law that banned private TV channels from having advertising, although it was introduced in State Duma to State Duma in the last week of spring session. It was voted in such a rapid manner. Then the next day it was signed by the it was approved by the upper chamber, and the next day signed by the president. That was a record-breaking law, and it was it had an effect for 1 month. So
it's not the law anymore?
Since 1st of January till 1st of February, then they changed their mind, and they made an amendment, and so this law does not exist anymore.
Okay,
some kind of reactive behavior.
You are saying that there is no master plan. Mr. Putin has no strategy, but we have 100 laws during 3 years aimed for the media. You have some laws aimed for you, and you had other examples. Does these things just happen? Or it must be a plan, it must be a strategy?
No, that's not a plan. That's like that's like a monkey playing piano. Many laws, but they have no sense. There is no strategy, let's say, against independent media, because independent media still exist. All of us are here, but besides, there are strong holdings. We have colleagues working for, let's say, RBK holding that actually appeared last year. It did not exist. It did not work in that way. But now it's very decent company. It's mainly focused on business, but also conducts very good investigations. And so it shows that the trend is not only negative. It could be also positive. It's they don't have exact strategy to kill every journalist, to destroy all the free media. No, they do something when they are extremely nervous, but then they fall asleep.
So if nothing special happened, the Kremlin is pro-free media in Russia?
No, I said they are doing something, and then they fall asleep. So normally, when they sleep, we flourish. Okay.
So we wish them good
mafia.
sleep. Yeah. I'm very sorry. We have been
out of time.
Yeah, we are irresponsible. Yeah, we will have questions, and we will need a microphone. And I would like you to tell who you are, where you are from, and to whom you address the question. But when you very slowly go there to the microphone, I would like to tell a story. It's about a media in a region on the countryside. It is owned by the region. And just some days ago or some weeks ago, the politicians sacked the editor-in-chief because he wanted to edit his media according to journalist principles. Have anybody of you heard about that?
Yeah, we heard. Of course, it was a big story, as far as I remember. But the editor was sacked by owners, but I think it was unconfirmed by the owner and by the editor. So
in which
story.
Russian region was this?
Barents Observer. What was the title of his book?
Is it Russia?
Yeah, sure.
And the audience, half of the audience know that, I'm sorry, Norway is the #1 of the Press Freedom Index, and this was in Norway. It's a Norwegian politicians, Norwegian news site, and a Norwegian editor-in-chief. And is Alexander Serbryanikov here? Blogger 51? No, he made protests in Murmansk against this, for press freedom in Norway. So, yeah, please.
I'm Manju Misra, principal of College of Journalism and Mass Communication from Nepal. I stayed in Russia from 1981 to 1995, and that was the most interesting and historic period in the, I think, whole history of Russia. Now, my question is, we had a panel discussion to discuss about Russia today, if I am not mistaken. And I was so much excited. Oh, what is happening with Russia all these 20 years? In the eyes of Russian, from your eyes, I'm going to hear about new things about Russia. That was my excitement. So I joined this panel discussion to hear new things from Russia, about Russia, by the Russians. But my question is to you. When you ask the questions, I felt that you are interviewing them.
That I had?
When you asked the questions to the panelists, my question is to you.
Yeah.
I felt that as if you are interviewing personally to them. You know, I'm telling my opinion. I'm not, because I want to say what I was not so much, I found so much not interesting. Не очень интересны вопросы. Вопросы знания вами не очень интересны. Как будто that was the interview между вами, между двумя, да?
But we promise to you that right after the session we'll try to tell you some important news about what's new in Russia during the last 20 years.
But I have been in other panel discussions, you know. The panelists will try to create an interesting atmosphere. Telling new things. But you asked such personal questions, you know.
I have made a bad job. And
excuse me.
Thank you. But are there any...
Your questions were not interesting. For me, I didn't come to know so many new things about Russia from these four experts.
I'm sorry. Could we have any more questions?
We can have. Спасибо огромное за то, что вы слушали меня.
Извините, да. Having more questions to the panel? It's good to get feedback.
Hello, my name is Anna. I'm from Russia. And I have, as soon as we have a topic, sounds like what's happening in Russia. So I have a practical question to all of you, maybe if you know some information about situation in the Republic of Komi, where like two weeks or maybe 3 weeks ago, the whole government were arrested. Like it was 16.
Can you talk a little closer?
Closer, yeah. The situation in Republic of Komi, where government with a group of his closest people were arrested, and I think you know, all of you should know that. And how do you think, was that a special event of our government? We don't want to focus on corruption problems. We don't want to focus on Ukraine crisis, and that's why we want to show our people that we work and we arrest criminals. Or maybe that was a real big cheat and stealing money system in Komi. So what was it? How do you think? Thank you.
You understood the question? Yeah?
Yeah, it's a good question, but it's a question about inside Russia agenda. We can answer it. It seems to me that it's not very interesting for all our listeners. You know, a couple of weeks ago, the prominent governor of Komi Republic, or its government head of republic, was arrested. And as far as I understand, the question was why? Yeah. If I can forecast something, or I can assume that, you know, it's typical way of doing political in Russia. Please remember Yuko's deal and Mr. Khodorkovsky. Please remember Yakunin and Russian railway station. Every time Kremlin pick up accidentally one person and punish it with brutally and rude, everyone standing in a fear, everyone freezing, and that's the main effect. It seems to me the trick is that those head of this republic is the same as every governor in every republic inside Russia. And there is no something special about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is clear explanation why he was chosen as this scapegoat, not the president of any or
Chechnya,
not governor of any other region, because that guy was appointed by ex-president Dmitry Medvedev, and he didn't have any. There is international word krysha. He had no one to lobby him and to protect him in Kremlin after the President Medvedev resigned.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Marina Calland from the Center for Investigative Journalism in London. My question is this: you know how Putin's support is 86%. What happens if Putin goes? Would anything change? I mean, 86% is a high number of people loving this sort of type of management.
Surprise, there is no 86% at all. It's a big lie. It's a big lie, and everyone buy it. There is no 86% at all. You know, the methodology of those polls are not so clear. And we knew for sure, and yeah, it's some kind of survival scenario. If someone ring to your doorbell and you saw 3 people with the document say, "Hi, are you Mikhail Zygor? What do you think about Putin? Do you approve them?" It's survival scenario. Almost half of these people who took part in the poll say, "Okay, I approve, close the door and return to your everyday life."
Yeah, but Putin
nobody wants a problem.
But he has a big support.
It's not popular. I mean, I don't know why he bothers faking elections. I mean, he will win.
Generally, he is still popular.
Yeah, he's still
You're
popular.
right.
Generally, he's still popular. So what happens? Sure. I mean, he goes. I mean, would anything change?
But yeah, what happens if Putin is not there anymore?
When?
Well, it's a hypothetical question.
No, it's important. You know, in Russia, the situation changes dramatically and very quickly. I would say the 1st of December, year 2011, no one could have expected that in a week, thousands of people will go and to protest in Bolotnaya. The situation can change. From the very beginning of his presidency, Vladimir Putin repeated that any approval rating can be ruined very quickly. So we never know what can change in a month or in half year. It can change. And I won't make forecasts. So,
as the Crimean, okay. Yeah. More questions, or we are far over the time, but one is waving there, and another there.
Hi, thank you. This is a question for all four of you. So I guess the answers will have to be brief. But I'm just wondering. I covered a lot of Ukraine and have been generally amazed by the levels of aggression and hatred that's coming out of the Russian society, and a lot of it is obviously driven by television. I had a really interesting conversation with someone with a Russian recently who said that she was convinced that it was very superficial, that it would go away. Because like one question that a lot of people ask, you know, not to worry so much about Putin himself and the government's change, but what happens to that aggression and to the beliefs that are being instilled now. So this person said, I really think it will just disappear. I really think it's superficial enough for it to turn around and the society will be able to kind of recover from that zombifying effect of the Russian television. I just want to know what the four of you think about that.
I think, if I may start, that's the most serious problem that we have. I'm really scared by the problem you've described. The Russian society is highly polarized. It seems like everyone hates everyone, and that's going to be the legacy of the current authorities. And I don't know what to do with it. That's the biggest problem we have.
Well, I think the problem is that it's not only about patriotism and hysterical campaign we have in the media. I think the problem is that the Kremlin very skillfully played with the feeling of fear, which is very widespread among middle classes. I mean, fear of, and the feeling of insecurity, that we got mostly after, well, actually the Kremlin started to play with this feeling after the Arab Spring, saying a message like, would you like Libya on your streets? And especially it was very present after Maidan, and the message to the middle classes in Moscow, which used to be very actually the middle classes went to streets to protest a year ago, but just in a year they became very scared by Maidan events, because Maidan was portrayed as a bloody revolution. So if you do not want this bloody revolution on your streets, it's better to support Putin. And but the opposition actually lost the support of the middle class. And the latest opposition rally in Moscow gathered no more than maybe 6,000 people, which is a direct result not only of propaganda in terms of all Ukrainians are fascists, but also its exploitation of this feeling of insecurity. And to be frank, I'm very scared that too many things in Russia were introduced because, and thanks to this feeling of insecurity, we got even the internet filtering system and censorship on the internet thanks to this feeling, because the idea was, look, do you want to have your children harmed by pedophiles? No? So okay, we need internet filtering system. And everybody just accepted that. Even some opposition leaders said, look, maybe we need to block something on the internet. So I think the problem is not only about Ukrainians. Look, just some years ago, our biggest enemies were Polish, I think. Then it was something about Georgians.
Then Estonians.
Estonians, Georgians. So they can play. Maybe now it would be Syrians, or maybe, I don't know, someone else. The thing is that we have some problems even with the most energetic and advanced part of the society. I mean the middle classes. I think the problem is that they lost the habit to think politically in the 2000s, because there was a trade-off between the Kremlin and the population, and the idea was, look, you give us prosperity and we forget about politics. That's why even when we talk about the middle classes, they're extremely naive in terms of real politics. And they might be manipulated very easily. And I think it might have a very lasting effect.
Russia needs a threat to mobilize somehow. Yeah.
Well, I think the problem is that no, I think we need to. We lost our audience in terms of investigative journalism. When we are talking about investigative journalism, we are talking about not emotions, but we're talking about facts, which is actually very difficult to explain and very difficult to understand. You need to have some sort of education, some sort of culture to understand these kind of reports.
Yeah.
And we actually, I think that many Russians, they just lost this kind of culture. For them, it's extremely difficult to explain things, even basic things about corruption, not to say about high politics or foreign policy.
Yeah. We have been far over the time. I see one hand. Is it okay to take one more question, or are you the one deciding? Okay, one more question. Short, please.
Hello, my name is Vladimir from Karelia, Russia. As far as we read in the schedule that we are going to know more about Russia, I think it's more if we have like two teams, because truth appears in the discussion. So like if we talk about hockey, we need not only the sport reporter, not people who hate hockey, we need people who like hockey. I think the second part is missing, somebody from the pro-government side, I think so. So it's maybe not a question, but a decision. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very, very much. And I say, in spite of this criticism, I will say a very, very huge thank you to the panel. Thank you.